My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and I've spent 15 years studying animal behavior and rescue psychology. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I witnessed on that fateful September morning in Oregon's Cascade Mountains. What I'm about to tell you challenges everything we thought we knew about animal intelligence, loyalty, and the mysterious bonds that connect all living beings. It started with a phone call at 3:47 a.m. The voice on the other end was trembling, a forest ranger reporting something that sounded impossible. A house fire had trapped the Peterson family in their remote cabin, 8 kilometers deep into dense wilderness. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Their rescue didn't come from trained professionals or sophisticated equipment. It came from Whiskers, a 6-month-old gray tabby kitten weighing barely 3 pounds. I know what you're thinking. Kitten? Saving humans? Sounds like a fairy tale. But I was there. I documented every moment, every decision, every miraculous step of this journey that would forever change how I understand the animal kingdom. The Peterson family, Mark, Linda, and their 8-year-old daughter Emma, had moved to their dream cabin just 3 months earlier. They wanted to disconnect from the digital world, to live simply among the towering Douglas firs and pristine streams. They never imagined that this decision would put them in a life-or-death situation where their survival would depend on the smallest member of their household. When the electrical fire started in the cabin's main room at 2:15 a.m., it spread with terrifying speed. The family found themselves trapped in the back bedroom, with flames blocking their only exit. Mark had tried his cell phone. No signal. Their landline was dead. The nearest neighbor was 12 kilometers away. They were completely cut off from the world, watching helplessly as smoke began seeping under their bedroom door. But Whiskers wasn't trapped with them. The curious kitten had been exploring the forest that night, as young cats often do. When she returned to find her home engulfed in flames and her family's desperate cries echoing through the smoke, something extraordinary happened. Something that defies every scientific explanation I've studied about feline behavior and cognitive capabilities. What happened next would take this tiny kitten on an 8-kilometer odyssey through one of America's most challenging wilderness areas, facing predators, treacherous terrain, and her own physical limitations. But this isn't just a story about distance traveled. It's about the incredible intelligence and determination that drove every step of her journey. As I reconstruct Whiskers' journey through witness testimonies, tracking data, and behavioral analysis, I'm struck by the sophisticated decision-making process this kitten demonstrated. We're not talking about random wandering or panic-driven running. This was strategic, purposeful navigation through complex terrain by an animal whose brain weighs less than 30 grams. The first challenge Whiskers faced was directional orientation. The nearest help was the Riverside Fire Station, located exactly 8.3 kilometers northeast through dense forest. There were no clear paths, no human-made trails leading directly there. Yet somehow this 6-month-old kitten chose the most efficient route possible, avoiding steep ravines and dangerous river crossings that would have been fatal for an animal her size. Dr. James Rodriguez, a leading expert in animal cognition at Stanford University, reviewed my findings and said something that still gives me chills. What we're seeing here suggests a level of spatial reasoning and problem-solving that we typically associate with much larger, more developed brains. This kitten didn't just travel 8 kilometers. She navigated 8 kilometers with purpose and intelligence. The forest that night was alive with dangers. Mountain lions, coyotes, and bears all call this region home. For a small kitten, venturing into their territory should have meant certain death. But Whiskers demonstrated remarkable survival instincts. Security cameras from a nearby research station captured her moving in short, calculated bursts, using fallen logs and dense undergrowth for cover. She paused frequently, listening, assessing, planning her next move. At approximately 4:20 a.m. she encountered her first major obstacle: Willow Creek, a fast-moving stream swollen by recent rains. The water was too deep and swift for direct crossing. Most cats would have turned back. But Whiskers traveled upstream for nearly half a kilometer until she found a series of rocks that formed a natural bridge. The precision required to navigate those slippery stones in darkness, with water rushing below, demonstrates a level of risk assessment and motor planning that astounds animal behaviorists. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of her journey was her persistence despite obvious exhaustion. Thermal imaging from the research station shows her body temperature dropping, her movement patterns becoming more labored. Yet she never stopped. He never gave up. Every step was driven by something deeper than instinct, a connection to her human family that transcended the typical boundaries between species. By dawn, Whiskers had covered 6 kilometers. She was cold, exhausted, and alone in unfamiliar territory. But she pressed on, and what happened in those final 2 kilometers would reveal just how extraordinary this little hero truly was. The sun was rising as Whiskers entered the most treacherous part of her journey. The final 2 kilometers to the fire station required crossing what locals call the Gauntlet, a steep, rocky slope where landslides are common and the terrain is so challenging that even experienced hikers proceed with extreme caution. I've hiked this area myself, wearing proper boots and carrying safety equipment. It took me 45 minutes to cover that distance, moving carefully and deliberately. Whiskers, with paws smaller than quarters and weighing less than a newborn human baby, somehow navigated this landscape in just over an hour. The evidence of her struggle is heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. We found tiny claw marks scraped into rock faces where she had climbed vertical surfaces. We discovered small tufts of gray fur caught on thorny bushes where she had squeezed through impossibly tight spaces. Each piece of evidence told the story of a creature pushing far beyond her physical limitations, driven by something that science still struggles to fully explain. At 6:15 a.m., Whiskers faced what should have been an insurmountable obstacle. A recent rockslide had created a 15-foot vertical wall of loose stone and debris. Adult humans would need climbing equipment to scale such a barrier. But our tiny hero found a solution that demonstrates problem-solving abilities that rival those of much larger, supposedly more intelligent animals. She discovered a narrow chimney-like crack in the rock face, barely wide enough for her small body. Using her claws and incredible balance, she literally chimney climbed to the top, a technique that requires understanding physics principles about friction and leverage. When I demonstrated this climb to a panel of animal behavior experts, they were unanimous in their amazement. "What we're witnessing," explained Dr. Angela Torres from the University of California, Davis, "is cognitive flexibility and spatial intelligence that challenges our fundamental assumptions about feline consciousness. This kitten is demonstrating abstract thinking, problem-solving, and goal-directed behavior at a level we rarely see even in dolphins or primates." But Whiskers wasn't just battling terrain. She was racing against time. Back at the cabin, the situation was becoming desperate. The smoke was thickening, making it harder for the Peterson family to breathe. Mark had tried breaking the bedroom window, but the drop to the ground was too dangerous with Emma. They were trapped and their options were running out. As if sensing the urgency, Whiskers pushed herself even harder in those final moments. She was limping now, her paws cut and bleeding from the rocky terrain. Her breathing was labored, her small body shivering from cold and exhaustion. Yet she continued forward, step by agonizing step, toward what she somehow knew was help. What happened when she finally reached the fire station would prove that her incredible journey was just the beginning of this miraculous story. At 7:23 a.m., Captain Mike Thompson was conducting routine equipment checks at Riverside Fire Station when he heard something that would change his life forever. A small, desperate meowing was coming from outside the station's main doors. When he opened them, he found Whiskers collapsed on the concrete, her tiny body trembling with exhaustion, her paws bloody from the treacherous journey. But here's what makes this moment truly extraordinary. Whiskers didn't just arrive and collapse. Despite her exhaustion, despite being in a completely unfamiliar place surrounded by strangers, she immediately began exhibiting behavior that can only be described as intentional communication. Captain Thompson, a 20-year veteran of emergency services, had never seen anything like it. "She was meowing in patterns," he told me during our interview. "Not random crying but deliberate sequences. She would meow 3 times, pause, then meow 5 times, then pause again. It was like she was trying to tell us something specific." What happened next defies every assumption about interspecies communication. Whiskers, despite her exhaustion, began moving in circles around Captain Thompson, then walking determinedly toward the forest, then returning to him. She repeated this pattern 7 times before Thompson realized what she was trying to communicate. "Follow me. I've responded to thousands of emergency calls," Thompson explained, "but I've never had someone, or something, actively recruit me for a rescue mission." This kitten wasn't just seeking help, She was trying to guide us to where help was needed. The dispatcher initially hesitated when Thompson radioed in about following a kitten into the forest. It sounded impossible, even ridiculous. But something in Thompson's voice, combined with the unusual nature of the situation, convinced them to deploy a full rescue team. The journey back to the Peterson cabin revealed just how remarkable Whiskers' navigation had been. She led the rescue team along the exact route she had taken, but in reverse. At every decision point, every fork in the path, every obstacle that required choosing between multiple options, she made the correct choice without hesitation. Dr. Patricia Gomez, who specializes in animal navigation systems, later analyzed GPS data from the rescue team's equipment. The route this kitten chose was not just functional, she discovered, it was optimal. She selected the path that minimized travel time while accounting for the physical limitations of the rescue equipment. She was thinking not just about getting back but about getting back efficiently with a team of humans and their gear. But the most incredible moment came when they were still 2 kilometers from the cabin. Whiskers suddenly stopped, sat down, and began making a sound that none of the rescuers had ever heard from a cat before. A low, rhythmic call that seemed to carry through the forest with unusual clarity. From the distance, impossibly faint but unmistakably real, came an answering call. It was Emma Peterson, responding to her beloved kitten's voice across 2 kilometers of dense wilderness. The rescue of the Peterson family was successful, but as I pieced together the complete story in the weeks that followed, I uncovered something that would challenge everything I thought I knew about the nature of consciousness, connection, and heroism itself. The medical examination of Whiskers revealed something extraordinary. She was not, as everyone believed, a normal 6-month-old kitten. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the veterinarian who conducted the examination, discovered that Whiskers had been born with a rare neurological condition called enhanced hippocampal development, a genetic anomaly that occurs in fewer than 1 in 10 million animals. This condition had given Whiskers cognitive abilities far beyond those of a typical cat. Her spatial memory, problem-solving capacity, and social intelligence were operating at levels comparable to dolphins or higher primates. But there was something else, something that the medical tests couldn't fully explain. Emma Peterson had been born with a complementary neurological condition, a form of synesthesia that allowed her to perceive and respond to electromagnetic frequencies that most humans cannot detect. The bond between Emma and Whiskers wasn't just emotional. It was quite literally a form of biological communication operating on frequencies beyond normal perception. What we discovered, Dr. Chen explained, is that these 2 beings had developed a form of interspecies neural synchronization. Emma could sense Whiskers' emotional and physical states, and Whiskers could perceive Emma's location and distress through bioelectric fields that most animals cannot detect. This revelation transformed our understanding of the entire rescue. Whiskers hadn't just randomly chosen to seek help. She had been guided by an actual neurological connection to Emma. The meowing patterns that Captain Thompson had noticed weren't random. They were Emma's distress signals, translated through their unique biological link and transmitted by Whiskers to the rescue team. But here's the most stunning revelation of all. The fire that trapped the Peterson family wasn't accidental. Investigation revealed that it had been deliberately set by someone who had been watching the family, waiting for the perfect moment when they would be isolated and vulnerable. The arsonist had planned every detail except one: the extraordinary bond between a little girl and her kitten, enhanced by rare neurological conditions that created a communication channel beyond the boundaries of normal science. What was intended to be a tragedy became instead a testament to the mysterious connections that link all conscious beings. 6 months later, as I completed my research, I realized that Whiskers' 8-kilometer journey through the forest had been more than a rescue mission. It had been a demonstration that consciousness, love, and heroism can emerge from the most unexpected sources, transcending the limitations we think define what's possible. Today, Whiskers lives happily with the Peterson family in their new home. Emma has become a subject of ongoing research into human-animal neural communication. And I continue my work, forever changed by the knowledge that the greatest heroes sometimes come in the smallest packages, carrying within them capabilities that science is only beginning to understand. The truth is, we are all more connected than we realize, and sometimes it takes a 3-pound kitten to remind us that miracles are not only possible, they're happening all around us, waiting for us to recognize them.